Okay, so I was noticing this thing when I'm meditating, and it's like, it's a thought that is like really silly in a way when I examine it, because it's like, okay, there is a like some sort of containment to I, but it's got this slightly, like there's sort of like a visual image of it being in space, but it's not external space, it's some sort of internal space or something. And then the evidence that there's some sort of containment is that, like, I'm privy to my own thoughts and my own sensations and feelings, not other people's. And I know that doesn't stand up to rational inquiry, but it still persists. And it's sort of like, well, if I don't keep that, like there's fear. Like if I don't keep that, then what is there? You know? Like, and it feels like this sort of really scary, again, it's really not very rational. So I think I need to kind of like hack away at the logic behind it. But there's sort of this, well, if I don't keep that, then I'll just like extend infinitely in space and time, but it's not even, but it's like an internal space, whatever the hell that is. You know what I'm, do you know what I'm saying? Can you hack at it?
If you were to infinitely expand, what would happen?
It's just scary. It's like you don't exist at all then.
Yeah, it's death.
Yeah. Forever.
Yeah, well, death. If it's not forever.
It's not death.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the fear. It's this feeling of forever.
Fear of death.
Fear of forever.
Of forever.
Yeah.
Of or of disappearing forever.
Yeah, I mean, same thing, I think. Like the way it's coming up right now is this sort of infinite expansion, which doesn't sound like death, but it is, you know?
It is, because
yeah,
if you infinitely expand, that which you are can no longer be defined.
Yeah, I know. But it's like, I'm just trying to tell you the flavor of it. It's like I used to have this thing when I was a kid where I would imagine dying, and then I would think about, well, it's non-existence forever. That's what it is. But that's sort of that's not just sort of, it is nihilistic.
It's death.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a definition of death.
Yeah.
Is ending.
Yeah.
Forever.
Yeah.
Because if we knew it's not, then it ends. When it comes back, there's no gap.
Say that again?
If we would come back, then the period of ending couldn't be known. If it was known, there's no end. It's not an end. So if you disappear and you come back, the period, hypothetically, that you were gone, you don't know it.
Why not?
Because if you knew it, you wouldn't have gone.
Okay, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The period where you're gone, you can't know it, because if you know it, you're there, it's not gone. Mm-hmm. So when you come back, you didn't die. Mm-hmm. And you didn't even know, let's say theoretically you did die and it came back, you wouldn't know.
Right.
And so you didn't die. You had no experience of it.
Yeah.
And so that's not, you can't fear that. You're fearing the ending that is forever.
Yeah.
And that's exactly a definition of death.
Yeah.
And so a way to look at that is, how is this ending forever going to look like?
Yeah. So you're recommending think about that?
Well, really contemplate how does this ending forever look like, because if you're not there to know it,
it's just so not comforting.
It's not possible.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Because it's so silly that this thought is protecting me from that.
Yeah,
like that's really silly.
Well, it's not. You have a sophisticated mind, and so you're expressing the fear of death in a sophisticated way, in a sense, complex and maybe complicated. But that's how you're experiencing it, because you have a sophisticated mind.
What's how I'm experiencing it?
The whole thing around the expansion and the separate mind.
Yeah. It feels like I'll die right now. And how do I know that I'll be able to come back in a sense of like being able to be consciously?
You don't know. And that's the only way you can experience the true transition.
But this is the thing, right? Like, so I have this thought that supposedly protects me from this happening. That's totally ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's just a thought. But at the same time, there does seem to be something like physical or substantial that happens when I go near that, and then it makes it feel like, no, that actually is real. There is something.
Yeah, the body and the mind, in a sense, are one. That's what we say, body and mind. So when at the level of mind, there's the coming close to the fear of death, it activates all the biological responses, which confirm I am dying. So I have to run away from this, and then the mind activates to protect, and it's this.
It's so funny though. It's so silly. Like an imagination in my mind that there's like some kind of like glass-like limit.
Yeah,
it's not doing anything.
It contains the idea that you are something.
Yeah, but that thought is that I'm separate because I have my own thoughts and sensations.
Yeah. And I am those thoughts and sensations, or the space where they appear,
So really, like, yes, I have that sort of somewhat element of privacy. But at the level of what is aware of those, there is no line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And look at, is the awareness appearing within that space, or is that space appearing within the awareness? Because you're talking about a sense of something expanding.
Yeah,
what we are can't expand.
Yeah, that it can only expand if there's this line.
Yeah, the idea of it.
Yeah, no, I am agreeing with you. Yeah, like there's an idea that there's a line, and so the line could expand. Yeah,
and that line is, when I said earlier, we identify with a part of our experience, and you're describing that part to be this more conceptual space of thoughts and the, sensations. But that's what happens. We experience sounds, and they are not me, they're out there. We experience sight, and we experience not me out there, except if I'm looking at my hand, that's me, but it's still out there. But it's that part of the out there is me. The sensations of the body, that's me. If I'm sitting on a couch, there's a sensation that is the contact of the couch and the legs, and there's a concept of, there's a part of the sensation is couch, not me, part of the sensation is me. All of that is this line and boundaries of me, not me, me, not me. It's all That's kind of how identification works. But if we start to look at those boundaries and see there isn't such a line, it's a conceptual. It's happening constantly. The map making of me, not me, me, not me. You're describing it from, if you meditate and there's the thoughts which are private, and that's the sense of me. But in the sense of expansion, there's like an ending to that.
Yeah.
And that's the edge. And in a sense, at some point it seems kind of like a requirement that in this process we transition to something that feels like the end of I. In whatever way that transition is experienced, it's this ending of the identification or the belief that I am a thing that is experienced. And the body is very likely going to activate as if it's dying. And you've had that. Probably less intense now. Is that kind of getting a little more toned down?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But sometimes still pretty toned up.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, yeah. Well, no, not like it was. It just seems so funny, like so difficult to surrender that thought at the same time as so easy to see it's so obviously just a thought and can't do anything.
Yeah. Yeah, at some point you see through it enough that it falls away on its own and you can't hold on to it.
That's what I'm trying to get, is like you to hack at it so I see through it more. I don't know if I'm not seeing it.
I think you are. It's just, it's on the way out. Julian?
Have you done, Catherine?
Yeah, go for it, please.
No, just something around, what you said, Catherine, around that I find it so mysterious. What you said like there is this sense that there is something that's private, because I see my thoughts, my emotions, and not the person next to me usually, no? And yet what I am is not, well, Nico, you said that what I am yet doesn't have that exclusiveness in a way. And I imagine that even once you've been through the transition you talk of, you still have also that sense of privacy where you see your thoughts and emotions and others don't. I don't know, that idea, there's something there that's so weird and mysterious that I just don't understand how can it be, no? That it sounds contradictory, but yeah.
The problem is that you can't really talk about it because the way you know it, let's say after the transition, all language belongs to the before. It's the nature of language. It requires an I and an other, and all of the dual aspects of language. And so you can't really describe. You could say, for example, thoughts appear, but they're not belonging to me. And so there isn't, in a sense of privacy. Like there was.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
There is, I can use privacy in a way of functioning, and I can use it in relationship, but it's not experienced how it was.
But I meant privacy, like not this is me or these thoughts and emotions are me, but in a way they're accessible by me and not by person next to me.
I would say that only in communication. I don't experience it like that. In relationship and communication, I would say this is my thought, or I had this thought, but it's not experienced in the sense of how it used to, where it was me and mine, and now is there's thinking, there's sensing, there's hearing. That's all there is. Seeing, tasting.
Yeah, now that you say it, there is something that kind of clicked or something, because you don't really know where the emotions or where the thoughts come from. So it could be the thought of the person next door, or
in fact, I know enough that is the case. I've experienced that enough that is the case.
That what is the case?
That if we're talking about people and the separate person as this, in the sense of body, mind, me, you, that the thoughts that I experience and the feelings that I feel, I've experienced a lot of evidence, and I can describe a concrete example, that they are not part of this, they're not originating in this body-mind. And in fact, they're originating or known by a different body-mind. I'll give an example that's the one that really shook me, because I was very much scientific materialist, very young, very skeptical of anything religious or spiritual. And I was around maybe 13, 14 years old. I was going through a lot of things which, looking back, it was related to this whatever this is. But I was going to school, and that morning I woke up feeling kind of out of it and a bit anguished, and which was not unusual. And I was wearing a hoodie with like a covering my face, and I was an introvert. I was unhappy. I was probably depressed. And I would go on a train for 2 or 3 stations to my school. And in Buenos Aires, the trains would get really packed in the rush hour, and they would, in fact, kind of push you from the outside to cram people onto the train, to a point where I could lift my feet like this and stay, because I was so compressed between people. It was quite a wild experience. And in one of these mornings, I started to feel this profound pain and anguish that I rarely felt so intensely. And it was becoming overwhelming and growing and growing and becoming overwhelming. And then at one point I became kind of desperate, like what? And I was starting asking myself, what is this? What is this? And I had this kind of knowing, I don't remember if it was an actual voice, but it was just this knowing, it's not you, it's not yours. And I was completely kind of thrown off by that. And I ignored it, and I just kind of hunched down and tried to kind of be okay with it. And I basically couldn't move. I couldn't get off the train. It wasn't moving. And it was becoming really unbearable, to a point where I felt I'm going to pass out. This is so intense. And in that moment, I ask again, if it's not me, who is it? Whose is it? And I looked, and 3 or 4 people next to me, I saw the face of a woman. And I saw her, and there was this knowing, it's her. It's her, this is hers, I'm feeling her. It was just this, and again, I was really, in myself, there's like ridiculous thinking, what it is completely crazy thoughts, and ignoring it. 5 seconds later, she collapses. And the train, which was already packed, really pressed to make some space. The train stopped, people got out, they lifted her, dragged her out, not dragged, but like lifted her, put her on the floor, the doors closed. And by the way, the instant she collapsed, all of the pain disappeared. The moment she went down, it all just went away. And then the train closed, took off. I was completely mind blown. And it took me a long time to even process the idea that I could feel something that was beyond like the physical space. And then I had experiences similar around thoughts, where kind of telepathy and that kind of thing. So just the evidence of anything I'm feeling, experiencing, thinking, enough to know its origin. There isn't any sense of an origin being separate. And today I would say I know kind of for a fact, it's hard to describe, I know for certain that there is no origin that is I, of anything that I'm experiencing.
There's no origin. What? Can you repeat?
Nothing of what I experience has its origin in I, but it's language. I don't know if I can say it.
Yeah. So in that sense, there is nothing really private. If you got to the conclusion.
That's why private. I mean, even that is like nothing is private. Again, that doesn't sing right to me, but it's more, if maybe in contrast to the belief that there is things that are private, that's a better one, but not as a true reality, as a statement. There is nothing that is private. That's another. It could become another belief. But if there is the sense of there is something truly private, nothing's truly private is language.